The courtroom went silent until a janitor in a faded uniform stood up and shouted, "I'll defend her." No one could believe what they were witnessing. A single black father daring to challenge one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. The air shifted, as if the very walls were holding their breath. The judge's gavel froze mid-air, the jury shifted in their seats, and even the endless clicking of cameras stopped in shock. Every eye turned to the man who had spoken so boldly. Marcus Williams. A black single father, dressed not in a sharp suit but in a worn janitor's uniform, stood tall in the middle of the aisle. For years, people walked past him without notice. He swept floors, emptied trash bins, and quietly faded into the background of other people's lives. But now, he was no longer invisible. In this moment, he was not just a janitor. He was a father who would give everything to protect his daughter. Across the courtroom, CEO Victoria Crane arched a brow in disbelief. She was one of the wealthiest, most ruthless women in the city, a figure who made seasoned politicians tremble. And now, a man society ignored dared to challenge her authority. To her army of lawyers, Marcus's outburst was laughable. To the spectators, it was unthinkable. But to Jasmine, his trembling teenage daughter, it was everything. The judge hesitated, torn between courtroom procedure and the fire blazing in Marcus's voice. The room buzzed with whispers. What chance could an ordinary man have against Victoria Crane's army of attorneys? What no one knew was that Marcus's courage was not born that morning. It had been forged in silence, across years of sacrifice and grief. Years earlier, Marcus's wife had passed away, leaving him to raise Jasmine alone. At the funeral, holding his daughter's tiny hand, Marcus made a promise. "No matter what happens, I'll always protect you." It wasn't just a vow, it became his purpose. Every mop he pushed, every sleepless night, every dollar saved was for her. His life was simple, but it was built on love. That love would now collide with power. Jasmine, smart and idealistic, had uncovered something dangerous. She spoke out against Victoria Crane's company, accusing it of exploiting low-income students with deceptive internship contracts. She expected truth to win. Instead, Victoria sued her, determined to silence her completely. Marcus searched desperately for a lawyer, but doors slammed in his face. The fees were impossible, and most sneered at the very idea of a janitor affording justice. When trial began, Jasmine trembled in her seat, dwarfed by Victoria's endless line of attorneys. And then Marcus rose. His voice broke the silence. "I'll defend her." To everyone's shock, the judge allowed it. Marcus had never studied law formally. He owned no textbooks, never sat in a lecture hall, never stood in court. But working nights as a janitor in law firms, he had picked up pieces. He listened when lawyers rehearsed their arguments aloud, studied scraps of briefs left behind, absorbed fragments of strategy. What others discarded, Marcus quietly collected, storing it in memory. Without realizing it, years of silent observation had trained him for this fight. Standing in court, Marcus's voice carried no polish, but it carried truth. "My daughter is not a liar," he said firmly. "She spoke the truth about a company exploiting kids who just want a chance. If telling the truth is a crime, then punish me instead." His words pierced deeper than any attorney's performance. Victoria unleashed her lawyers, who came armed with binders, contracts, and intimidation tactics. But Marcus didn't match them with jargon. He fought with piercing questions. Why target only low-income schools? Why bury students in debt and call it opportunity? Would you let your own children sign these contracts? Each question stripped away the glamour of Victoria's empire. The jury leaned in closer with every word. The gallery, once skeptical, now murmured in support. Marcus, the man who once blended into the background, had become a voice for justice. By the third day, the trial was no longer just about Jasmine. It had become a clash between two forces: cold, calculated power and the unshakable love of a father. The jury saw it. The spectators felt it. Even the reporters who came for a routine case sensed history unfolding. Marcus wasn't an attorney, but he had something stronger than legal tricks. He had truth, and he had love. Finally, Victoria Crane herself was called to testify. She walked to the stand with her usual icy confidence, her heels striking the floor like gunfire. The room held its breath. Marcus approached her slowly. He didn't shout, didn't posture like a lawyer. He asked just one question. "Ms. Crane, Have you ever stood in a courtroom like this, fighting not for money, but for the person you love most in the world? The silence that followed was unbearable. Victoria's mask cracked. Her confident smile faltered. Her eyes shifted from Jasmine's trembling hands to Marcus's steady gaze. And then, in a move that stunned the courtroom, she exhaled, lowered her head, and said, "Your Honor, I'm dropping the case." The gallery erupted in gasps. Jasmine collapsed into her father's arms, sobbing with relief. Marcus closed his eyes, whispering, "I kept my promise." The judge struck his gavel, officially dismissing the case, but the echoes of that moment reverberated far beyond the courtroom walls. By morning, headlines swept across the city. Janitor defends daughter against CEO and wins. Strangers who had never met Marcus hailed him as a hero. Reporters swarmed the courthouse, shoving microphones in his face. How did a janitor with no legal training defeat one of the most powerful CEOs in the country? They demanded. Marcus gave a small smile and said, "I may not have money or power, but I have love, and love will always find a way to fight." That sentence struck harder than any victory speech. His story became a symbol that no parent is too small, no voice too weak, to stand against injustice. It reminded the world that sometimes the most ordinary people perform the most extraordinary acts of courage. Jasmine walked out of the courthouse that day with her head high, her future safe, and her faith in her father unshakable. And Marcus, once overlooked, had shown the world that love can take on power and win. Sparkles, this was today's powerful story from the Hidden Chapters. If Marcus's courage inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that touch the heart and open the mind. And hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter, because here, every story reveals a truth worth remembering.